What's going on, guys? It's Frito here for your Overwatch. It's patch day season 11. Let's take a look at all the changes. One global change is knockdown time between two charging abilities when they collide is reduced from 2 full seconds to 1.7. Small little reduction on this. This is when characters like Reinhardt, Doomfist, Brig, Bob collide into each other and they both fall. A mutual knockdown, those are a little bit shorter now. They'll both get up a little bit faster. I would say most of the time that's affecting tank gameplay. A bit more devastating to a tank though, because if you had to all-in trade your Brig for the enemy's tank, that's an uptrade for you, since tank characters are so powerful. And then of course, in tank mirrors, there's a lot of cases where both tanks die, both tanks are having a miserable experience, but taking the pin trade is like the most optimal thing you can do and just pray that your team carries after that. Good change overall. D.Va gets a couple buffs. The impact damage has been increased on her boosters from 15 to 25, and her fusion cannon's weapon spread is reduced from 3.75 to 3.375. The devs say this will make her more effective at chasing down squishy targets, because remember, anytime they reduce the spread of a shotgun type weapon, it's effective at further distance, because most of it is going to be hitting the hitbox. And then as you close the distance, it gets more effective, and then you get a burst of damage with the boosters at the end. Especially since D.Va is bad against armor now, try to avoid targeting the tank if there's better squishy targets on the periphery or on the flanks, as D.Va's better at dealing with that now. Junker Queen gets some improvements. The startup time on Rampage has been reduced from 3/4 of a second to 1/2 of a second. I suppose since there is some harsh shutdown abilities such as Hinder, which can cancel your entire ultimate, winding it up and getting it off a little faster is certainly a much welcomed improvement. Jagged Blade also now pulls tanks farther, which is kind of strange that they're now adding CC kit that kind of outdoes the tank passive, I can't be CC'd, roll passive. Why are they doing that? It's almost like a global resistance for all characters against all things is just a silly idea and isn't working anyway. If the game's gonna get complicated, like different damage types affects armor differently and different characters can actually CC a tank but others can't, why do we even have roll passives, guys? It's already complicated. The point of roll passives was supposed to be that it gave a simplified, unified theme on the roll, but now there's exceptions to that, so I don't know. The devs comment that this will almost double how far that tanks are pulled by Jagged Blade. They're wording it as if it's a bug fix because apparently the knockback resist was resisting more than they intended. So you used to only pull them 3 meters and now it'll be 5 to 6. Either way, I feel like my point still stands. Run for the hills, everybody. They're buffing Orisa again. Javelin Spin's cooldown is reduced from 9 to 8. And the devs say Orisa's survivability was reduced more than necessary in her last round of changes. Orisa's an odd one, because if you look at Overbuff, her win rates are actually quite low at most ranks. Yet when you look at top 500, she's one of the more common tanks. I think we just have to come to terms that this is a character that sort of just lets you opt out of making tank gameplay. If you want to just hide as a tank most of the game and use buttons to survive, Orisa's kind of the character. However, I think many players will be happy to hear that Roadhog is getting some nerfs. The base health overall is going down from 650 to 600. That's a heavy nerf, I think. And Take a Breather's damage reduction has been reduced from 50 to 40%. Remember, this is now after they nerfed him a bunch in the mid-season patch as well. These aren't dumpstering him numbers, but they do definitely add up over time. And Overwatch is a game of seconds. Total health going down is always a big deal, even if it's on a tank. You should be able to catch him out in more scenarios, but I don't think he's gone entirely. The Cassidy flashbang rework type thing is now out. Magnetic Grenade is now flashbang like it was in Overwatch 1. However, instead of a stun effect, it hinders enemies. And the movement speed reduction on it is actually buffed, goes from 30% to 50%, and Hinder prevents crouching. It's going to deal 45 explosion damage with a 12-second cooldown. Now keep in mind, this makes it be an AoE, but close range. So while you're losing out on those long-range magnetic grenade sticks that are either from luck or from medium range chasing a target as they try to run away, but what you're gaining is much more responsive CC in medium range. So sort of fan the hammer distance, Cassidy's way more effective now. I think this is a massive buff buff, actually. He was already overtuned. This makes the reliability of his CC a lot higher even, because you can aim it to explode it at the ground or a few feet in front of you. Explodes in an AoE, so it's even easier to hit in some cases. Both versions of this nade I've hated. I think they should just go back to the actual flashbang, and that would have been better. More changes though. Deadeye's movement speed penalty now scales down over time from 70% to 35%, and the damage reduction scales down as well from 40% to 0. So that's giving it a bit of a trade-off. Rather than standing there channeling Deadeye forever with 40% damage reduction, over time, you'll get more and more vulnerable, but you'll also speed up to be able to catch up to a target to actually use Deadeye to confirm kills. Overall, I think probably a buff. You could do some disgusting things with Deadeye, dropping off the top ropes, landing in the middle of everybody with damage resistance, channeling Deadeye, and if there wasn't an answer available, you could take everybody out. You can still kind of do that, but I think over time, players might realize now you may have a window to focus the Cassidy as he tries it, but if you try to run away, you probably will get taken out because he'll start moving faster, and it already was a very powerful technique to speed boost this ability. It'll be even better now. Combat rules damage reduction has reduced from 75, that's what it was, oh my goodness, to 50%. Still probably too high. Still enough to resist a pulse bomb if you time it appropriately, though that's one of the cooler self-defenses since you actually have to time it. I'm certainly happy to see that Fan the Hammer's damage has been reduced from 50 to 45. For my taste, that's not even low enough. It shouldn't be more effective to just spam this at tanks or even in a lot of medium-range duels. Keep in mind, I think Fan the Hammer is just better now since Flashbang will be so responsive. The devs go on to explain the reason why they're reverting Magnade because of the fantasy didn't really make sense and it was also unfun the way it chased you around. I didn't mind the explosion one myself, although people said it was boring and lacked texture. You'll have to let me know what you think when you try it out, either in the comments section or on Twitter. You can follow us at YourOverwatchYT. I think this might be the worst version so far. Mei's endothermic blaster secondary fire base projectile size has been reduced from 0.15 to 0.12, but its damage goes up from 75 to 85. Importantly, that's still not enough to one-shot a Tracer. You'll be dealing 170 with a headshot, and her health is 175. However, this does mean you'll be able to two-tap a Reaper more consistently even if he's healing a little bit, as 2 headshots will do 340, and you used to only do the flat 300. Speaking of Reapers, Hellfire shotguns have been buffed, weapon spread reduced from 6.5 to 6, and the cast time on Shadow Step has been reduced from 1.5 to 1.2 seconds. The devs explain that this is to shift Reaper towards going at squishies since they lost their ability to go at a lot of the tanks, seeing as shotguns are highly ineffective against armor. Sojourn gets quite a rework again. The rail part of her weapon goes down with its damage scaling. It used to be 30 to 130 and could headshot, remember. Now it does 1 to 100. Sojourn's rail is a 1.5 critical multiplier, so that meant it used to do 195 and they never adjusted it for the health reworks. Now it does even less. Unless they change that part of it, the railgun is only going to do 150 with a critical hit. They give it a compensation buff that allows the railgun to pierce targets, just like it does normally with Overclock, allowing you to get collaterals through the team with any railgun. You might even accidentally get a kill by spamming through the tank. Another buff, the primary fire shots per second has increased from 14 to 16. So that not only racks up more damage that way with the submachine gun part of her railgun, it also will build your railgun faster, so you get it a little bit more often. But as the devs explain, this is all to turn Sojourn more into a pressure character rather than a sniper. And that change is carried over to her ultimate as well, where the energy charge rate is increased from 100 to 120. So more rapid fire railguns in the ult. I don't know how I feel about this, guys. Have we gone a little too far in hating the one-shots in the game? Like, is the alternative actually better? Everyone who asked for this? Symettra gets some buffs to her base health. It will now be 125, so her total is 275, and Photon's projector's primary fire charge rate has increased by 25%, so the beam will ramp up more quickly. Changes to support now, healing pylons Healing per projectile gets buffed from 30 to 40, but it's only half as effective on Illari. The health of the pylon also goes up to 125. Outburst damage has been increased from 10 to 25. A series of strange buffs, but I can see it. Illari's a pretty hard character to get to work and seems somewhat popular despite that. The devs explain that this is because they want the healing pylon to do the healing while Illari focuses on pressuring. I don't think my Illari teammates were struggling with that concept. Keep in mind, the one nerf here, though, is that when you isolate Illari when she's camping her pylon, it won't heal her as much per second. Whereas it used to do 30 per second, it now will only do 20. So she should be easier to dive on, but more effective at healing her team. But a little bit more damage when she outbursts away from you and takes the duel. Kiriko gets a couple nerfs, long awaited and much needed probably, especially the interaction with Protection Suzu no longer cleanses hard knockdown stuns. The devs say that refers to most all knockdowns where the player is stunned and laying on the ground, such as Reinhardt's Earth Shatter, with the exception of Ana's Sleep Dart. There's not so many of these types of stuns. You got Earth Shatter, Maga's Overrun. I struggle to think of more off the top of my head. Swift Step's cooldown has increased from 7 to 8 seconds, which seems like a cupcake nerf, but every second on this matters since you use it multiple times in a fight, or perhaps can't now. And that's it for all the balance changes today. The patch is live. Let us know in the comment section down below how you're finding it. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave it a like, and don't forget to hit subscribe and click the bell icon to actually get notified when our videos come out. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.